Steve.
Right, that's recording now. I'm gonna go. Well,
Right, thanks.
Hey.
Hey, you're right.
Yeah, yeah. So
Right.
do you want to run this from a welcome to socialist strawberries and socialism perspective?
Yeah. Do you want me
Okay.
to do that?
Yeah. I'm absolutely fine for you to do that.
I'm gonna leave the room. If you get kicked off, let me know, and then I'll let you back in, and we'll
All right.
start again.
All right.
Nice
Thanks,
one.
Steve.
Right, so hi everyone and welcome to Socialism and Strawberries. Happy New Year and that. We're back live and kicking. What? Anyway, today I have got Akua Bayanu, who is going to be speaking on behalf of the National Women's Committee. So how are you doing, girlfriend?
Hey, you know what? It's been a long time, it feels, but it's good to be here on the show with you. I have to say, I'm speaking not on behalf of the National Labour Women's Committee. I'm speaking as the vice chair and as an individual who's just come out of a meeting. I just feel.
Why don't you say that? I'm going to start that again then, because I'm not looking like a fool for no one. You should have said that, man. All right.
Sorry.
We're going to have to start again. Cut it. All right. Cut. Right. So how do you want me to introduce you then?
Yeah, if you just say who's on the vice chair of the National Labour Women's Committee and just wanted to pop on to give us an update on what is happening.
Yeah. Okay then. All right. So hello everybody, and see, now I'm so pissed off now because I had that was a good one that I did. A good introduction. All right. Hi everybody. Welcome to see, now I'm tongue tied now. I haven't done this in so long. Right. 1, 2, 3. Hi everyone, welcome to Socialism and Strawberries. Happy New Year. We're back here again. What? We've got Akua Bayanu, who is the vice chair of the National Women's Committee, and she's just come out of a meeting and she's just popped on to let us know what's been going on. So, Akua, how are you, my friend?
I am good, particularly good to be back on the show, to see you and to have an opportunity to talk about what is going on with the National Labour Women's Organisation, a CLP rep on the committee, and just to give a feedback. We've got Women's Conference coming up, so yeah, happy to be here. It's a sunny day in Manchester.
Well, yeah, it's a cold day in London, so I'm not even going to try and act like I'm having a great time here. I'm freezing, man. Lord have mercy. Like, literally, I am so cold. I haven't seen no sun either, so yeah, it's not been a good day for me in terms of weather. But anyway, let us know what's been going on with the Women's Committee. What have we got to look forward to? What's been the highs and the lows? Let us know. Give us the lowdown.
Yeah, and I'd had hoped that others will come on if you invite us on again, or we are actually thinking about seeing if we could do a regular show to give women members updates in terms of what's happening with the committee and the conference. But let's start with, so I literally have just come out of a National Women's Committee meeting. It's actually the third, and in the rules they're trying to say that we only have 3. Well, not that we only have, but it's a minimum of 3 a year, which is just not possible. We've just done 2 hours. Primarily, the second meeting primarily focused on the women's conference, but also looking at things like women's shortlists, women's representation, a whole range of things, but how we can actually move on from sorting out the bureaucracy. It's a new organization. It's a new organization within a party that is currently losing resources, it's losing staff, and we are incredibly under-resourced. So getting a new organization off the ground is proving difficult, and it's something I'd really like to address with members in terms of what they can do to put pressure on. It's about priorities, isn't it, when it comes to spend, and how can they put pressure on with the membership, women, that this organization and the committee is properly resourced. So there's so many things to talk about.
Yeah, so what sorts of things can women members do to, add pressure on the leadership to obviously resource women's committees?
I mean, I think it's something that we could look at through motions, asking or putting pressure on to say we need to see the equality structures in the party properly resourced. But it's such a wide, and because it is about priorities making and in terms of spend. But I feel like if there's no point almost having these, so we've got the Women's Committee, obviously other equality structures are coming up. We're both really keen to look at the BAME structure, even if we're not keen on the name. And if we're looking at the reduction in terms of the support from the party at this level for women, who make up at least, I would have thought, half the membership, how is it going to be for the other equality structures? How are we addressing structures at all? So I think it needs to be discussions in branches, women focusing on getting the branches up. And we are going to be giving a lot of support to that, so that women now have an opportunity to have much more power in their voice through the women's branches. They can put motions direct, they can get support, and some of them aren't getting that support from their CLPs, and we can help them get that, particularly with our women's officer. And then once those structures are up, whether it's through a CLP or through your women's branch, get motions demanding that these structures are supported. The National Women's Organisation, with the management of it being done through the National Women's Committee, is properly resourced. I mean, we currently don't have an independent minute taker, for example. So we have the Charlotte Gerarda, who is our National Women's Officer, and she has a lot of report, to presenting to do. So she's often speaking on nearly all the items that we look at, because she's feeding back from the party structures, and she also has to take minutes. And that's a huge amount. And then once we've had the meeting, she then also has to lead on the implementation of any of our decision making, any of our questions. We do also have NEC members there. I would say we've got a lot of support from women members of the NEC, who then take and will be taking some key points back through to the NEC. So they've got an awful lot on their plate as well, as ever. But one of the main areas we've asked is for them to look at, where is the resourcing? How can we prioritise getting this committee resource so that we can be engaged a lot more with the membership, and also be supported. So all meetings we have to have a Labour Party official attend if they're going to be officially if the decision making within them is actually going to be officially pushed forward. So we've only got one subcommittee. It's had one meeting, and that's specifically around branches. So we recognise the importance of branches, and we want women to be telling us how that's going. We're looking at providing more training. So there was training at the last Women's Conference, which was less than a year ago. So we've also got to bear in mind that we've had not a year to implement all the decision making or even our role because we were elected at the last conference, which is less than a year ago, or it'll be less than a year ago at the next conference as well. So yeah, that sort of double whammy. Women in their CLPs, the unions, just putting pressure on to get it properly resourced. I mean, sorry, go on.
So I was just going to say, obviously you want, women to get into branches and things like that. But if they're not being encouraged, to do these things, how are they going to find ways into getting the branch set up? It's really, really difficult. You know what I mean? Especially if you've got a CLP that's just not interested in women's issues. Do you know what I mean? How are we going to encourage women to set up these branches if they're not in them?
Yeah.
Because that's the key issue here at the end of the day. These branches aren't being formed, so the women are not having the access to the to the right things that they need to organize. So at the end of the day, it's about getting that message out and encouraging women to form these branches and get active in them as well. So getting more active in the CLPs as well, through putting the demand in motions and that to get their branches set up and stuff. But at the end of the day, I feel like more needs to be done to encourage women to set these things up, to be honest, because currently now I haven't seen it, to be fair. And, if I haven't seen it, then others haven't seen it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But for me, there's 3 issues that you've raised there, and they are all the responsibility of the Women's Committee, which is obviously why we're saying, get us resource so we can do this work. So one, there are women forming branches. There's not enough branches formed. I think we do have a report, and I don't remember it. I think it was around 38, but I am not a data person, so I'm not gonna. But it's not enough. That's what I know. Then there are women. So there are branches that have been formed. That's great news. There are women who are trying to set up branches and are having obstacles. Now that's something directly they can report to the women's officer around what those obstacles are and how we can support to get those branches set up. Then, as you say, there is an issue about there not being the awareness or support given to women to know that they should and can, or why a women's branch is different to a women's forum, how they transit from a women's forum to a women's branch. You know, if a women's forum is across two CLPs or three, can they still be a women's branch? There's a whole heap of questions. So as I say, there is also looking at training delivered about the facts, about the detail of how to. And then the fourth issue I think you're addressing, which I think is really important, is how do you even get that message through to women if CLP secretaries, whatever the management of those CLPs, aren't seeing it as a priority, aren't actually seeing this. So it's weird because they then, in many ways, are the gatekeepers to put in place the equalities process that they themselves are failing on, if that makes sense. So I do think we need to look at that, and that is where I hope that National Women's Committee can be a lot more active. It's so hard because we've been battling with even getting the detail of what our role is, how we can fulfill our role and take the power that we should have and put it into action. And there's a sort of, and this is a personal opinion, but I think there's a bit of a pushback around really empowering the structure, and we're looking at, you know, working really hard. There are some amazing women who are much better at rules and things like standing orders and processes than I am. I'm really keen, as all of us are, to get on with the nitty-gritty, because we do know some of the issues. And actually, so we've got the work to do to get the committee working, the work to do to get women's branches up and running, and then the actual work of why we have both these structures, which is to address the issues for women generally, widely in the party, but also in society. So there's those strands, and we're all looking at what our roles are within this to work on each of those areas and to deliver for women across the party. So an example of that might be on the agenda of today's meeting, we had a man from the National Policy Forum, and we looked at what happens to motions, because I think it's great that we've got women's conference and that women's conference can put motions forward. I think 11 motions went forward from the last conference, 2 went to the main annual conference in Brighton, but the others would have gone through to the National Policy Forum. So we were having a feedback on what happens when they go there and how does that impact on the development of the party as a whole. Now, the National Policy Forum, we found out today, is right in the middle of some restructuring. They're going through a recruitment drive in terms of, so it's not been a very functioning body. Hugely important to be aware of this. And I think it's holding our hands up, they are, to this, but they're working on it. And what I'm looking at is how, so we have members of the National Policy Forum who also sit on the National Women's Committee. God, I can't even believe I'm talking like this, Andrea. I feel like a machine. It's not why I joined the party, but it's important. I do always recognize the importance of bureaucracy, but then my head goes, and I'm sure maybe some of our listeners will feel the same, like, what's she going on about?
Yeah.
It's important to know. We need to know what happens to motions. And so they're hard enough to put together. They're hard enough to push through our branches, into our CLPs, our unions, if we have affiliated unions. What then happens with them? It's really important that we're aware of what happens with them, how they actually shape policy and direction and priorities and focus for the party. And that's an area that we questioned today. We've got the feedback that it's in process of being developed and being much more transparent and open and working. And we will be keeping an eye on that and what I want to see us doing, and why I've jumped on today so quickly from the meeting. So obviously I haven't got a report here. I've got loads of bits of paper, old school, with a pencil even, that I want to feed back to you. But yes, so that is a really important area that we're working on. But everything is time deadline.
Yeah, I know. But thank you for the update on like all the bureaucracy and all of that. Like, yeah, that's all good to hear. But I want to get to the nitty-gritty stuff now. What campaigns are you lot going to be coming with for this year? Because I'm really interested in finding out what you guys are going to be focusing on. Do you have a focus? Will you be having meetings for us to come and attend? Are you going to be, involving members in what you're doing? Like, you know, how are you going to be spreading your message around for members to get involved? Are we going to be receiving more emails from you? Like that sort of thing. Like, let us know, like, what exactly is the direction
I mean,
of the women's community?
Yeah, really important points. You don't currently get anything directly from us. All our communication comes via the women's officer, who then has to go through things like glue, and it has to be internally signed off before anything can be officially communicated, which is why this type of work, the work that you do, Andrea, getting people on talking directly, is so important, because for the time being, this is going to be the main way that I feel I can communicate with the membership. So going back to what you were saying, what are we working
Hold on. Right.
Okay.
Someone just called me. Go on.
Okay, sorry. Oh,
can you hear me?
On your phone, it'll happen and say
it's gone low. Hold on. It's gone low. Fuck's sake.
Oh, I heard that clear.
I can't. It's the speaker. The speaker's not loud. So I can't hear you.
Oh, it's been taken off by the phone call. I hate when that happens. You can do your do not disturb, and then no calls will come through.
Right, here we go. Yeah, go on.
This is the joy of live television.
I know, go on. What was you saying?
So you were asking me about our work program. One of the if you imagine, well, I'm hoping how we are in terms of leadership, we've been elected by women to represent them. So a key for that is everything in the content of the motions that were debated and agreed at the last National Women's Conference. And for us, the most important thing for us to do was to make sure that the which those motions would actually create some sort of change or influence or impact on the party as a whole. So that's why I was talking about National Policy Forum. What we've now been tasked to do in terms of me as a vice chair, the other vice chair and the chair, from all the feedback from the meetings we've had today and from that, coming up to before conference, is to lay out a schedule of meetings that we will have. And I know that there's certain areas that we will be wanting to focus on, but they will be drawn from women's voice. We didn't come to sit as individuals and make up what's in our heads. But there's been surveys as well come back. So I know that the three main areas that women want us to work on are violence against women and girls, health, and democracy, like the democratic in participation. Now, I have that data. I can't share it, but I'm the filter, so I can share what has stuck in my head. So those are the three main areas. Today, we also looked at the complaints.
Yeah.
Sorry?
So in terms of the violence against women, I just wanted to draw your attention to something, because you've just brought up an issue that I wanted to discuss, basically. So in terms of violence against women, obviously, there are communities that are pretty much excluded from services that help women with domestic abuse. So the particular community that I'm going to talk about now is the Gypsy Roma Traveller community. Now, currently, at the moment, there are, a lot of children being taken away from this particular group of women because of domestic abuse. And my issue is with, family court and things that are going on there. So in terms of violence against women, what are we going to be focusing on? Because at the end of the day, I feel like we need to be focusing on women that are illiterate and disabled, because they're not getting the support that they need in terms of accessing domestic abuse services, accessing legal aid that's actually going to support them and give them the support that they need to actually keep their children. I've witnessed the most atrocious racism. I've never even experienced this type of racism towards me in my lifetime. You know what I mean? And I'm 34 years old and I've never seen it in my life. And I just want to, be reassured that these women are now going to, be focused on in terms of the violence against women motions and stuff, because at the end of the day, I just feel like they're really excluded and not enough. We're not fighting enough for this group of women. And you know, the longer we ignore what's going on, the more their children are going to be taken away by a system that's literally not prepared to support their needs. So like, I just felt like, as you brought that motion up, that I should state that, because it's something that I'm working with. And you know, like I said, I'm just seeing really, really bad service from organizations that are trained and qualified to actually support these people. So yeah, that's my 10 pence worth.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I think in terms of, we look at, I think what we need to do from a political point of view, because I'm very aware of the work that you're doing, Andrea, and also aware of what's happening up in the Northeast in terms of from continental African families, I think suffering very similarly. And we need to explore what the root of that is. But from a political perspective, we need to make sure that the motions that we put forward are refined and pointed enough to actually include that. And from what I can remember from the motion, and I say I'm coming direct from the meetings, I'm not coming prepared for this conversation in terms of detail, is that there was some specific reference to Black, African, Gypsy Roman traveller communities. But if it isn't, it needs to be in there. We need to be really aware. And then what we need to do is to see what the Labour Party is doing to support those organisations addressing those issues. So it's getting that information. We need to be seeing how the Labour Party membership, which is still, you know, large and informed and engaged in their communities, can get that information to the makers, particularly in the shadow cabinet, but beyond that. And these are the sorts of things that I'm really particularly interested in driving. So I know I came onto the committee with a particular interest around women's health. And I think the issues around violence against women, and particularly where it's focused on a specific community, comes under that, because the impact on women's mental health particularly, but also physical health, has a real, you know, is really it's a really key issue within this. So I think it needs to be addressed in a wider. We need to find and ensure that that is being lobbied. We need to lobby those parliamentarians who should be leading on that work, and we need to look at doing the research. And what we as a Women's Committee need to be looking at and joining the dots. Who's doing what? How can women access them? How can the information that we're aware of as activists and campaigners get through to have political champions? And I hope that's very much, and it's something that I'll be working at. So what we need to look at is the whole channel of communication. How can we get that into our work program so that we begin to be able to focus on specific areas of work over the next year? Now we're actually end up having less than 2 years as National Women Committee members, because we were elected in July, and the re-elections will happen. So we will have 1 year to begin to action this. And obviously it's going to be, there's no point us dealing with issues if we don't get anywhere, if there's no power with our decision making, which is why I respect the people who are so into the rules and getting it sorted and making sure we have the right standing orders and the right resources. But what we are promising for this year is that we are going to be much more issue focused. What we haven't worked out is how. And well, that's not true. Obviously, we have an age-old system, again, of motions. And what I need to think about is how motions come through to us in between conference. Conference is really important. It gives us a big workload to work from. But how can that be refined, and the detail and the specifics come to us as well? So I have to more take that back and go, always through this process, if we can encourage people to contact me through this and gain that information so I can be a conduit. But actually we have a whole party structure for that as well. So that, again, it's women's branches, it's CLPs, it's that structure. We need to make it much more effective, much more clear. You've got on the ground activists who are aware of what's happening on the ground. They feed that through their branches into their CLPs, into conference, into National Policy Forum, into the National Women's Committee to support. And that what we need to do is to be trying to get what I'd hoped, what I'd imagined was going to happen, when I got on the committee is I would then be visiting women's branches across the country. Just, you know, like I mean, I managed to do quite a lot of that during the campaigning period, and I thought I would be able to continue. And we've just not had the scope or the support to do that. And I need to look at how bring back, because we haven't even got agreed the resources to attend, like if we, you know, the resources and to attend meetings. So far they've all been online, but if we go back into in person, we wanted to, there's nothing to support us actually going to them. So that's really important, particularly when we look at our low-income women being able to participate, our Black women, disabled women being able to participate, our women from backgrounds like the Gypsy Roman Traveller community able to participate politically in the Labour Party. And how do we take on board that the lives, the day-to-day lives of people in these communities is so tough? Because one of the things I find really absent in all the structures that is that I'll sit shoulder to shoulder with somebody who isn't necessarily worrying about paying their electric bill, or, you know, the recent incarceration of a family member, or we just don't pay attention. We do equality by, and we haven't yet addressed that by letting people be present, but we don't address the issues that they bring. You know, it isn't just about, oh, here's your seat. It's how do people get onto that seat? You know, how do they stay on that seat? And this is, I mean, one of the things we've been looking at is all women shortlists.
Yeah.
So and the what's happening around all women shortlists. So there's the parliamentarian stuff, but I'd like to focus more on the councillor stuff, but we can come back to the parliamentarian stuff.
Okay.
So there is a much faster turnover of women councillors not being able to sustain being councillors.
Wow.
And I'm pushing at the moment for detail on that, particularly around Black women. And with the recent update to our code of conduct in terms of anti-Black racism and misogyny, I want to see the stats. It would be really useful to see. I mean, I'm coming from a council that has just been the only African Caribbean councillor resign in the face of racism. That's what she has put into the press in terms of why she stepped down. And her position was not replaced as an all-women shortlist. So immediately, and this is not against that, I've got nothing, I'm not saying anything about that particular candidate, but a white man has replaced her. And this we will see all over the
forward. So was no women put forward then?
Yes, women were put forward.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a lot in the public realm that I can, you know, we could maybe point people to in terms of what's been written about that process. And I'm not going to go into that detail. I would just suggest people read it, what other, you know, people who are much closer to it and what happened. But this is me taking a local example and saying it's happening across the country.
Yeah.
And how are we monitoring that?
You know, it's absolutely wild what's going on, but you know, this is the current situation that we're in the Labour Party, I guess. But anyway, Akuwa, so what steps are you, as the vice chair of the Women's Committee, going to do to get more women involved in setting up the women's branches, in you know, putting forward the motions? What are we going to see different? Are we going to see more posts? Are you going to create some social media for you guys? What are you going to do? Akuwa?
Oh, all of that is it. Thank you, Andrea. I get bullied into social media all the time, and you know it's not my favorite in terms of communication. I'm much more a one-on-one, you know, talk to people type person, but obviously then you have to publicize it on social media. Really good question. I think my role at the moment is to work with the chair and the vice chair to get this schedule of meetings organized for the next year, to get that out there so that we can bring that to the Women's Conference, and then we can start promote those. What we're happening, how we can invite people to input on that, who's going to be attending those meetings. In terms of women's participation at branches, that's a key area. We've sort of only got the resources to have one subcommittee, And the only subcommittee we have is on women's branches. So that is going to be definitely around training, general training, going out beyond women's conference, but certainly in the run up. The conference is in March. In the run up, we want to look at training around women's branches specifically, but other more practical stuff. We want to have chances, because one of the problems with the online conference now that we've got, you know, because the decision was taken at the height of the worries around Omicron, which I think is still very relevant to go back online, is how people, so people don't just rock up on that weekend, go, how on earth does this work? We need to come along to this, and you can get talk through how you ask to speak, how do you work out how to get from one event to another, so people actually have some hands-on practical advice. The other thing was looking at how there's a lack of a social element, or that whole, the real power of being able to network with other women when you go online. We open the chat facility, for example. It was asked today, can't open the chat facility because it's abused. I mean, my head goes into, oh, I think this needs to be exposed and talked about, but a short-term response is, therefore we close the chat facility so that abusive events can't be shared between women. Horrible that happens. And so, for example, when I attended women's conference, I was in 3 different WhatsApp chats, so attend and present in the conference, and then we could talk to each other. How can we encourage people to do that across the country? How can we make them open so it's just not mates talking to mates? And certainly in at least 2 of those chats, I was meeting people I'd never met before, and we were, you know, attending sessions and feeding back. That was very useful for me on the second day when I got very, very ill. So it was really good for me to be able to just catch up from my bed and other things that were happening to me. So yeah, so it's things that we can do to change the format in terms of participation to the conference, but there's also things that we can do to encourage people to take control of that themselves. So I'm really keen to look at how we do that. The branches subcommittee will come up with and hopefully they will do this before conference so they can present it, a really structured way that branches can be supported. Because as I say, at the moment, if they have struggles, it has to go through the women's officer, who is implementing every decision we make. She also does that for the Women's Conference Arrangements Committee. When I say that they're under-resourced, it's incredible. We were getting some of the stats today, and I can't give them, but we're talking departments of, say, 15 going down to, I think there was one in particular, not 15, 6, 8, going down to 1 person. Yeah, it's this is the impact of the financial position the party's in, and we need to be really realistic, but also we need to not just go what they're doing, what can we do? Because that's who we are. We're activists. We take control of action. So I'm hoping that we can also hear from activists about what they're doing and the initiatives that we can support. But as you say, we can only do that if we open up communication channels. Exactly. So this is a two-way thing.
No, exactly. It's spot on. Yeah, members need to get involved, but like obviously the National Women's Committee need to, you know, tell people how to get involved. That would be useful, I guess. And like moving forward, like I'm you know, you've convinced me and reassured me that that's what we'll be seeing moving forward. I guess my next question is, when are we going to be seeing things coming from the National Women's Committee, and when can people, you know, start getting involved?
Right. So, as I said, we hope to be able to put forward this program of work at the National Women's Conference. So that's going to be a really important thing. We are going to be proposing items for the Fringe program.
The dates. What's the dates for the conference? For those that don't know.
Yeah, hang on.
Cool. Are you actually trying to tell me you don't have the dates, fam?
Let me just chat, and then I can read it to you. Come on, chat. The dates are in March.
Nice. All right then. And the emails have been sent out as well, haven't they? For people to obviously sign up for that, right? Because I've had my chair come to me asking me for a motion for it. So I did my motion on Hello? Akua?
The motions
Akua?
have to be submitted. Are you there? Yes.
No, I can't hear you.
Are you there?
Go on. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I'm having the same problem with you.
Well, I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you now, but it was breaking up.
All right. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
There ain't no
So
issue
I'm back.
with my internet.
Tell me the conference. Right. Hey, the conference. Hello?
Pardon?
You want the dates
No, I
of the
can't
conference?
hear you properly. Yes, the dates. Yes,
you want
please.
the dates?
Yeah.
19th to 20th of March.
Nice one. Thank you. And
19th to the 20th of March.
I know. Thank you. I heard you. It's you. It's not me. You keep going on and off. You keep going on and off.
Okay.
Hello? Are you okay?
I think it's, yeah, okay, I'm here.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah,
Are you okay?
I've got full bars
Yeah.
on my internet. I don't know what's going on.
Right. So,
Yeah.
what was I
You
going to
keep
say? Yeah, I've
breaking
got
up for
full
me
bars on
too, but let's carry on. This is live TV.
Right. So, yeah. So anyway, finally, what else have you been up to? We got 5 minutes left, girl.
I've got two other things I want to say. That is, get onto the website for the conference, Labour Party conference. The emotions, as you say, have to be in by the 11th of February, but there's been a change in the nominations for the Women's Conference Committee that has now been pushed to March, I think the 10th. But all that information is kept up to date on the labour.org.uk website. God, I hope I've just given the right URL. Can you imagine? There was one other thing. Let me just don't. There was something else I wanted to just quickly share, and I had my notes and now I've lost it. Because it was really relevant to what we're talking about today. It's just something that came through, and I just wanted to get back to people about it. And of course, I now can't find it. It was right there at my fingertips, and it has gone away.
No worries. Like I can put it on
the complaints procedure. Complaints procedure. I think it's really important for women to be aware of. New complaints procedure should be going live any minute with a specific channel for putting in complaints around harassment, sexual harassment for women members. It's really important that we are aware of it and that we keep an eye on it. And I think we'll come back to it. We know the issues with the complaints procedure. It's a new one. It's independent. It's not quite live yet, I don't think, but I want to update you guys when it does go live. Also, that we want to be assured that if you like, because we know there is intersection when it comes to the complaints that we're putting in, and that women may not always identify it, that it's based on gender or race or whatever that's going on. We're wanting to make sure there's a staffing in place to be able to do that and for us to be able to support that. So I think that's an important thing to raise with members and an awareness around that, and the new code of conduct update.
That sounds sick, man. Brilliant.
The Islamophobia one's live now as well.
The Islamophobia, yeah?
That
Islamophobia
update is now live as well.
All right, sounds brilliant. Yeah. Right, so what else have you been up to, man? Chat to me now.
I feel like it's so busy. So obviously I'm a local councillor. That is.
Yeah.
Pardon?
What's been going on in your ward?
Well, interestingly, we've just had a visit from the new leader of the council. So 25 years of one leader stepped down. We now have a new women leader for LGBT community, which is great. She's been visiting, unheard of. No, I'm not saying I know, because I've only been a councillor since May, visiting all the wards, but it certainly seems to be a buzz around that. So she came to Hume Ward on Monday, and that was great to see her, to go around and be able to highlight issues. There's a lot around a lack of youth provision in our ward, about getting that on board, because there's also quite a lot of violence. You know, it's there've been a number of tragic incidents around young people, So that was a really key area to look at around planning and development, trying to put people, actual people, residents, back into the sort of heart of our decision making as a council. And I feel like that Bev Craig, as that new leader, understands that and wants to do that as well, which is really important, because I think a lot of the things around planning, we're in an area that's close to the city centre. We've got the encroachment of, there are different rules around city centre planning in terms of the height of buildings, the number of student accommodation, and we want to make it clear that this is a residential area and the people, the residents, want to care about where they live and need to be responded to and their needs and concerns addressed. So that was an important part of the message there. From my perspective, getting, we've got, coming up this year, it's called Our Year. It's posted at the direction of young people. So it's a year of the child for everybody. So in Manchester, it's being called Our Year, and it's making sure that there is engagement. I'm taking on responsibility for all the schools. So I've written to all the schools saying, can I come in, meet you, see what your plans are for the year of the child? How can I support that? And that will cross over with the work that the other two councillors are doing as well. We're very much a team, which is great. And we're 3 women. I won't say there's a connection, but it does mean that it's a ward that's likely to be under attack in terms of all women shortlists, which is a bit depressing. It's like, why do we have to get rid of it just because? Well, that's the message going out in our council, that wards that have 3 councillors will be open, but the all women shortlist will be removed. I think it's an area that we're definitely tackling. What else is happening locally? I'm in the Socialist Health Association, so I'm one of the equalities officers, and we have a working group on health and social care inequalities. We've got a seminar coming up to look specifically at what that means, both because it's looking at both service provision, but also the conditions for different communities, where are the inequalities within those. So that is happening on the 6th of March. So I'm doing work around organising that. Some great speakers will centre on that. I've also got a really good video of somebody not very far from here talking about the impact in terms of health inequalities for the homeless. I'm hoping to be able to share that as well. Obviously, Greater Manchester Tenants Union. Wow, a lot of work happening around that. Tenants Union work. Wow, what are our key ones? So we've just produced a report, which I would love to get out nationally, around the impact of short-term letting, Airbnb, for example, but it's a huge one across everywhere, I think, in this country, and what can be done politically around that, because there's often things that we want to do that are legislated at national level. It's what we can do at a local level to address those things in terms of just monitoring. There's a lot about antisocial behaviour. If you've got a house in the middle of a residential community that parties 30 people in what would normally be a family house for a family of 5, and suddenly there's 30 people coming in over a weekend, the noise, the litter, all that impact, plus the loss of family housing. So that's a big area that we're working on, looking also at social housing and the impact of the reduction in funding and how that's working. It's busy here, as we all are. How about you,
man?
Andrea? What are you focusing on?
Well, man, obviously, like, the world does not know yet, but I have been selected to run for council. I'm running for West Putney, and it is down for a winnable ward. We're doing, the guys are doing brilliant. So I haven't been canvassing much because I've been working. Obviously, I'm an advocate for people that can't read and write, so it's been a pretty stressful time. But they've been doing the work, man, and they've been, canvassing and phone banking and bundling leaflets and getting them out. Like, they've been doing absolute brilliant work. I'm going to be joining them by the 29th of January, but I've got some stuff to sort out. Do you know what I mean? That needs to be prioritised. So I'm obviously currently fighting for 3 children to go back to their mother. So it's taken a lot of time because obviously the mother is illiterate. So I've been supporting her and ensuring that she's got the support that she needs and is in the services that she needs to be in. She is an Irish traveller woman. So I've been pretty much on the phone with her every day. I now can listen to myself on voice notes, double checking what I have said to her to make sure that it's right. I used to sound grim, but I'm actually used to it now. But just ensuring that that I get her back those children. working with the MP as well and the councillors. They've been absolutely amazing. I'm not going to name drop the council because they're cool people and they've been doing the work. Do you know what I mean? They've been supporting this person. So at the end of the day, like, I'm not going to be bashing them, but yeah, it's brought up a lot for me, especially like social services, the state of social services, the lack of funding, the social workers overworked, and you know, their ability to support you know, Irish traveller women fleeing domestic abuse. You know, it's been an absolute disaster. Obviously, with her being illiterate, she hasn't understood why her children have been taken off her. So I've had to be the person to read that out to her, and you know, at the end of the day, it didn't go down obviously well, but you know, it's a learning, isn't it, that you know, these services need to gain understanding and reach out to these communities, because they're not going to obviously reach out to us. Do you know what I mean? So it's about getting out to those communities and ensuring that they know what support services are out there for them. And you know, so we don't end up with more children being taken away. And also the issue of children being taken away into non-traveller families as well. That's a really, really big issue. And we also need traveller women, you know, Gypsy Roma traveller women to be getting out there adopting as well, and into foster care. They need to know how they're able to do that, because there's plenty of them that can do that. There's actually more traveller women, Gypsy Roma traveller women, than there are men. Do you know what I mean? So in some communities. So at the end of the day, you've got you know, you've got to reach out to these communities and ensure that they're getting the support networks, because currently now we are failing these people. And at the end of the day, to see it as a Black woman as well, like I have never ever experienced this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I might get hostility, you know, I might get called aggressive, I might get called angry, I might get called you know, over passionate about what I'm doing and stuff like that, or I'm just too stubborn. Like, I don't care. But like, to witness what I've seen here, like, I've never seen this in my life. And at the end of the day, it's eye-opening. It's alarming, it's scary, and you know what, it impacts innocent children, and it also impacts an innocent mother who just simply didn't know how to protect herself. So at the end of the day, like, there's so much going on with it, like, you know, even down to legal aid as well, how legal aid are providing services with people. Do you know what I mean? It's an absolute disaster, absolute disaster. And you know, they didn't even support this woman as well. So that's what bugs me as well. She had no support until I met her, and then now, obviously, now I've met her, she's in domestic abuse services. She's got her key worker with Hestia now. She's going to be doing the program that she should have done 2 years ago. She's working with other services as well. She's engaging more with you know, people outside of her community. You know, she's been a delight to work with, and yeah, it's just absolutely a shambles that she's literally been let down by the system. And yeah, if I get elected as a councillor in West Putney, I would definitely be fighting to change family court and stuff, because yeah, it's not working. And at the end of the day, like, I need to bring up the other issue about the father as well. Like, you know, perpetrators aren't also getting the support that they need as well. And at the end of the day, we can sit here and talk about we want domestic abuse to end, but it's not going to end if perpetrators aren't getting the support. It's literally that simple. Like, and I've literally had to ring so many services across the country, not even in this man's area, around the country. And the foolishness responses that I was getting, do you know what I mean, was an absolute disaster and disgrace as well. We are not going to end domestic abuse if these people are not getting the support that they need. It's that simple, Kuwa. It literally is. It's not going to happen, because at the end of the day, these individuals don't understand how to manage their anger and don't understand how to manage their behaviour as a whole. And there also could be a potential of them being a product of their environment, witnessing it themselves as youngsters, and then following it through, do you know what I mean, as they grow up into adults at the end of the day, and using that behavior throughout their lives. So yeah, there's so, like I said, there's so much going on,
and it's particularly hard when what people don't see is the actual impact of being what people don't understand is the impact of being at the receiving end continually of systematic racism, you know, abuse, and how that it's not even an internal community thing. It can be how that community is responding to being constantly under attack. How can it develop better internal processes when it's constantly fighting back just for the right to survive? And that, I think, is really important. And it's how we address that politically. What comes over clearly to me as well is how do we, who are at the cutting face of dealing with those things, whether it's through the work we're doing, through the community activism, or even personally, deal with that at the same time, ensuring that we get political representation, we get either our own political representation or the current political representation who understands what we're talking about. When we're often, because I was thinking about when you were talking about technology, mine just completely disappeared this week. You know, I need a new phone, new laptop. I was like, you know, we have different conditions to deal with in terms of finances, all sorts of things. But I don't want to jump this, but I know we're going to end soon. I just thought one of the other big areas that I've certainly done recently through Labour Black Socialists is to raise the issue around the conditions for Black women, particularly around menopause. So it was being discussed yesterday at parliamentary committee level around menopause, supporting women. So I'm going to bring it back to women, of course, as you were. And we put together a paper about the specific impacts on that statistically Black women are Black African heritage women are more likely to suffer more severe physical impacts through menopause, and so how that feeds into the working group who are looking at menopause generally for all women and how it impacts on our ability to work or be supported through work. So that's sorry, I just remembered that issue was a live one that we're working on currently. That's more.
Thank you, Akua. Thank you, Akua. It's been an absolute delight.
Thank you for having me.
And at the end of the day, I hope that people have got more of an understanding of what the National Women's Committee will be doing. Akua will be joining me again to let me know at the next meeting what's going on, and I'll be having the live updates from her, and hopefully some more of them will come on and fill me in on the gossip of the National Women's Committee and all of that. So anyway, join us next week and we'll be here with another guest. Take care, folks. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Did you enjoy it?
The record, but that's it. Ended.
Yeah, we can't even end the call.
Yes,
did you enjoy it?
The sound. It was crackly for both of us. Yes.
Yeah, I know, but like he will be able to edit it, so it'll be fine. But anyway, darling, I wish I could stay with you, but I'm literally going to a solicitor's meeting in 5 minutes. So I will speak to you in a bit. Love you.
Yeah. So we'll just need to create some social media around it and get it out.
Yeah, talk to Steve, because I've been speaking to him for a while. So yeah, you're best to go to him and talk to him about the social media and stuff. And I'm going to get on with Kathleen because I've got to go. Take care, darling. Love you.
Good luck with this meeting.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.